Hello, I'm Jimmy. The article I chose for the week 4 video discussion is called The Relationship Between Workplace Social Capital and Suicidal Ideation in the Past Year Among Employees in Japan, a cross-sectional study. So, I chose this article because I lived in Japan for 2 years. I lived in the business district of Tokyo named Shinjuku, and when I was living there, the Japanese suicide rate was very high, and it was very much a part of our life. Anytime a train was delayed, it was likely because somebody committed suicide by jumping in front of a train. And this affected your life every day, and especially since I saw it firsthand when I was on a train once when somebody committed suicide by train, which I was riding on. So the study shows how mostly tracks suicidal ideation amongst men and women, and how it relates to their social capital within the workplace. Men in Japan are more likely to report suicidal ideation. Or are more likely to commit suicide. It's about 24 out of every 100,000 versus women, which are about 10 out of every 100,000. Japanese business culture glorifies social capital and workplace social capital, and workers will work 12-hour shifts on a regular basis, 5 hours a week, and then afterwards are usually expected to go out drinking with their colleagues every night and their boss in order to get a promotion. Often in Japan, you are expected, when you get married, the first person you invite over to your house for dinner is your boss. And if you are not married, you often will miss out on promotions. So this, in our country, in our culture, we have a separation between what's business is business, what's personal is personal, and those two worlds should not meet. That is very much not the case in Japan, at least in my experience. The study broke down workplace social capital in Tsukuba City, Science City, which is a very famous place for research in Japan. And it broke down the social capital of high, mid-low, and low. And amongst men, there was a direct correlation between how much social capital you had and whether or not you reported any suicidal ideation. Interestingly, women, when they were broken down into that same category, the women who had the lowest social capital reported the most suicidal ideation. However, next was the women who reported the highest level of social capital, which I find very interesting. It could be related to how much women have to sacrifice in order to get to the top of the professional world. They often have to sacrifice families, having children, and there's a level of guilt they feel for not being home with their children and not fulfilling the expected role of women within most societies. And in Japanese society, women are expected to be at home and be mothers, and you are seen as sacrificing something. You are seen as taking from your child if you're not there for your child. However, there is another way to look at that. Men with high social capital need to be seen as leaders, need to be seen as strong, and may feel pressure not to report such feelings of suicidal ideation. And therefore, they may not report it and may repress those feelings and not deal with them, and eventually those feelings become too overwhelming and could explain why Japanese men are more likely to commit suicide than Japanese women. Well, so there's a lot to unpack. This study breaks down social capital much more if you look more deeply, but those are the points I found most interesting, especially in a topic that affected me so much when I was living in Japan. Thank you very much.